Hello, Tito. How are you?
Okay.
2 p.m., Louis?
the-
Or do we wait for a few more minutes?
no, is Bobby in, by the way? Bobby is in. Wait, let me
I'm
just
here.
Oh, hi, Bob.
Hey, Bing.
Yeah, we can start already.
Okay.
check. Yeah.
Hello, Carlos.
Start.
Hi,
Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 23rd online meeting of the Rotary Club of Makati for Rotary Year 2021. I'm Big Matoto and I'll be your moderator for today. Before I call on our presidents to officially call the meeting to order, allow me to remind you of some house rules. Please be advised that the microphones of non-program participants will be muted to help keep the background noise to a minimum. Second, may we request visiting Rotarians and guests to please type in the comment box your name, your club or affiliation, or the Rotarian who invited you to participate in this meeting so we can properly acknowledge you later in the program. For the open forum, after the talk of the speaker, in case you want to ask a question, please use the raise hand button or simply notify us by typing in the comment box. Alternatively, you may want to type in your question and we will try to accommodate it during the question and answer. And lastly, please don't leave yet after the response of our president, as we will have our group photo op with our speaker. Since this is a joint meeting with two more Rotary clubs, we will be calling the respective presidents to call the meeting to order. Let's start with our President Louis to call the meeting to order. Thank you, Louis.
In behalf of the Rotary Club of Makati, I call this meeting to order.
Thank you. Next, we have President Irene Hong of RC Circuit Makati.
On behalf of the Rotary Circle Makati, I call this meeting on order.
Thank you. And finally, we have President RJ Paguyo of RC Paranyak Midtown.
In behalf of the Rotary Club of Paranaque, Midtown, I call this meeting to order.
Thank you, life-changing presidents. Now may I call on Rotarian Jennifer Faye Layug from RC Circuit Makati to deliver the invocation.
Good afternoon, everyone. Let's put ourselves in the love of the Lord. In the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, amen. Lord, eternal God, we are about to begin our meeting, and we do so with the awareness that without your divine presence here at the center of our meeting and also within ourselves, our work will be empty. Grace us with your wisdom and visions. Give us with holy humor and humility so that not only this meeting, but all our lives may be a meeting place for your kingdom. Bless and protect everyone who seeks you, needs you, and believes in you. We ask this throughout the Lord Jesus Christ, who lives with you in the unity of the Holy Spirit, now and forever. Amen.
Thank you, Rotarian Jennifer. Now, can I kindly request everyone to put their right hand on their chest for the Philippine National Anthem, which will be followed by RC Makati hymn. For the four-way test, may I call Sorry.
We're the Rotary Club of Makati, and together we stand proud. We are leaders with integrity, always ready to serve humanity, always living by the four-way test, building goodwill and peace along the way, giving hope to the world. We're the Rotary Club of Makati, prepared to aid our fellow men, as through Rotarians we live to lead. We believe in service above self, and this is why we succeed. We're the Rotary Club of Makati, and together we stand proud. We are leaders with integrity, always ready to serve humanity, always living by the four-way test, building goodwill and peace along the way, giving hope to the world. We're the Rotary Club of Makati, giving hope to the world. The Rotary Club of Makati.
Okay. For the four-way test, may I call on Rotarian Tersh Tupas of RC Paranyak Midtown to lead us in the recitation.
Good afternoon, Rotarians. The four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. First, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? And fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Now it's time to recognize our birthday and wedding anniversary celebrants. Greetings to the following. For the Rotarians, we have George Barcelon, 19 February. We have Glenn Gatuslao, February 19. And the Rotarians, we have first Antes Aseoche, February 16. Arilyn Gan, February 21. Delia Peña, February 21. And Bonnie Santos, February 21. Okay. Now we'd like to acknowledge our visiting guests and Rotarians. We go through the list. We have the following this afternoon. We have the following Rotarians. We have, of course, first Antes Aseoche. Happy birthday in advance. Nelly Bengson, Marisa Del Rosario, Lou Limhoko, Terry Tambunting, and life-changing President Rachel Harrison of RC Makati Business District, life-changing President Cory Navarro, RC Makati EDSA, life-changing President Kiko Africa, Paranaque East, and the following guests. We have Raymond Braganza, Chito Panlilio, Jonathan Samonte, Tess Samonte, Kay Ann Santos, Gray Takda, Noemi Trinidad, and Kevin Vosotros. All right. Now, at this stage in the program, we will get to know one of our new members. And can we call on our baby Rotarian, Keith Harrison, for his classification talk. Keith?
Good afternoon. just going to. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm just going to share my screen. There. Is it working properly?
It does.
It does. How about that? I can see myself. Good afternoon, everybody. I wonder whether any of you can recognize some of the pictures on the screen at the moment, some familiar faces, and also some pictures which I was involved in the past. I was born in London to William and Joy Harrison, eldest of 3 boys. I learned how to use the phone early on in my life to ensure I stayed informed. I had a very sporty upbringing and used to get dressed in the same clothes as my brothers and played cricket, football, rugby, swimming, golf, tennis, hockey. I went cross-country running. I did everything I possibly could. I went to school in Sussex, which is in the south of England, where my parents and for my family, we all lived there until I was 17 years old, and then we moved to London. I had a career in finance pretty much all of the time. I studied accounting in what is now the London Metropolitan University, and I went to work for a firm under a training contract called Did & Farrows, which is now BDO, the accounting firm. I qualified as a chartered accountant in 1982, and in 1983 I went to work for Price Waterhouse in Johannesburg. This was the start of my international wandering. I did go back to England in 1985, but I didn't stay for very long. I joined a bank, Samuel Montague, part of the Midland Bank Group, which later joined the HSBC Group. And after joining them, they had a brilliant idea. They decided to post me to Hong Kong in 1987. So I haven't lived in England since then. I moved to Hong Kong and it changed my life forever. Whilst in Hong Kong, career-wise, I moved from Samuel Montague to Standard Chartered Bank, and they later moved me to be general manager of their private banking subsidiary in Geneva. So I had really arrived in private banking at that stage. Then after 1 year, Standard Chartered decided to sell the business, and I moved to Coutts in Singapore, a private banking business owned by the NatWest and then later RBS Group. 3 years later, they moved me to Miami. Rachel, who's on the line, will tell you that she was particularly pleased with this move. And I became president and chief operating officer of the bank there. Then the group sold the LATAM business, and I moved with Coutts to Zurich and then to Geneva, where I ran the branch and its businesses from there. And then in 2008, we jumped ship back to Asia, and I joined as a region head for a bank called Bank Hapoalim, which is an Israeli group with a private banking arm. Now, when Bank Hapoalim exited the business, I became an insurance broker. So through all of this with Abacare, so through all of this, I've been a bank chief executive, and I've been approved by 3 different regulators in 3 different continents, yet I still require approval to play golf from my wife. It's not fair, huh? Anyway, in June 2020, I left the corporate world and joined my wife in looking after Zamberwood, a business we established about a decade ago in Zambales. Remember, I only moved to the Philippines in March 2020, when my 1-week visit from Singapore was turned into 2 years and counting. I talked to you a little bit about my Rotary life. As you know, this is a classification talk. I joined the Rotary Club of Wan Chai in Hong Kong in 1993, and I left when we left Hong Kong in 1995. And I rejoined Rotary in 2009, becoming a member of RC Singapore. There I remained until I switched from RC Singapore to RC Makati in late 2020. My classifications were banking-wealth. The club already had a private banker. Then it was banking-regional, The club already had private banker. Then it was insurance broking - medical. The club already had an insurance broker. And now it is resort management. So I'm finally an original. There is no other resort management in our club. In RC Singapore, I was fortunate to serve as the International Service Director and then later as the Honorary Treasurer. And then in 2017-18, I became the club president with the motto, making a difference, and the logo that looked like colored condoms. You presidents are all mad, my district governor used to say, yet my batchmate was PP Junjun, and he was a GP. He was a great president. So go figure. I think we're mad, okay? I just love my Rotary experience and being part of this family and having the chance to be part of so many activities of doing good. And you can just see it with the smiles that you see in any of these pictures. So now finally to the bit that you've all been waiting for, the personal bit. I met Rachel, the Filipina and gorgeous Cathay Pacific stewardess in Hong Kong, and we got married in right at the end of 1988. We have 3 boys, Alexander, 31, and he's a chartered accountant. He now lives and works in London with his Singaporean girlfriend. I have Julian, who is 29 years old. He lives with autism and he lives in Sambales on the campus with Zamberwood. And he works as a farmer and as an artist, amongst other things. And then we have our baby, Jonathan. Jonathan is just 22. He graduated last year and has just got his first job. And he is now living in New York in his first job of his. So Rachel and I are empty nesters, living in Rockwell and going to the province to see Julian and check up on Zamberwood from time to time. Rachel, as you perhaps heard earlier, is also a Rotarian, and she's currently the president of RC Makati Business District, our daughter club. Thank you for the time you gave me today to share a little bit about myself and my background. I'm truly honored and pleased to be a member of RC Makati, and I'm looking forward to getting to know you all better over the coming years as we all serve together.
Thank you very much, Keith. Thank you. Unless there are some questions from our members here about Keith's talk, but that was a very varied and interesting background, Keith, that you gave. Interesting name of your corporation, Zamberwood. I would have guessed that, is that based out of Zamboanga or something? Or?
It's from Sambales. In the early days, there were quite a lot of movie shows and the TV companies went there, and one of Rachel's friends quoted that it was more like a movie place, more like Hollywood. So they coined Zamberwood.
Okay, thank you, Pete. Now, before we introduce our esteemed speaker, let's hear from our president for their update on the goings-on and upcoming activities of the club.
Thank you, Bing. And let me greet an advance happy birthday to my one and only Tess. And thank you also, Keith, for introducing yourself to our club. And Melanie Lopez calls you the Earl of Sussex. But the Earl of Sussex needs to ask permission from his wife, my classmate Rachel, to play golf. Huh?
For sure.
You have impressed us truly well with your dance move during my induction last December. You are among the very few who joined the RC Makati after having served as president in their former clubs. You honor us with your wealth of experience as a relatively long-time Rotarian and as a past president of the Rotary Club of Singapore. Welcome to our club, Keith. Thank you also to my classmates, life-changing President Irene Holmes of RC Circuit of Makati and life-changing President RG Paranyak of RC Paranyak Midtown for agreeing to co-host this meeting with me. Today, we take a break from our success stories with an update on the state of our economy and what is in store for us after a couple of months into the year. And let us see what Mr. Robert Lehmann of Amalgamated Investments Bank Corporation will prescribe for us this year. Allow me now to report on the major activities that our club, the Rotary Club of Makati, participated in for the previous weeks. First off, we went to the Hospital ng Malabon with past President Cesar Campos to turn over diapers, wipes, and bottled waters. If you will recall, the Korea Food for the Hungry International, or KFHI, upon the initiative of our past President Tito Panlilio, donated a container load of hygiene products from Korea. Our club made or facilitated batches of deliveries for the past weeks by first partnering with Rotary Club of Makati San Antonio and life-changing President Aiza Espina Mendoza in turning over 80 bags containing diapers and baby wipes, as well as drawing books and crayons to Keith Foundation for distribution to pediatric cancer patients. This was done on January 27 at the office of the Keith Foundation, and past District Secretary Doris Ensoma was also there during the turnover. On February 1, in partnership with several clubs in District 3830, we distributed 280 packs of diapers to the mothers in Cabiao, Nueva Ecija. I would like to thank Ria Vallejo for representing me there. And then on February 3, we partnered with RC Makati Southwest, led by LCP, Let Malapad, and the PNP Regional Mobile Force Battalion to distribute diapers in Bagong Tanyag Taguig. Chief of Staff Ron Bataro and Richard pitched in for me on that day. And as I said, last Wednesday, February 9, together with past President Cesar Campos, we turned over 484 packs of diapers to the Hospital ng Malabon. This was also in partnership with our brother club, the Rotary Club of Malabon, led by LCP Ernie Sia. After the turnover, I was invited by past President Cesar to pay a visit to a family clinic which the Campos family operates in Malabon. And this is the Poly Health Clinic, which is a multi-specialty clinic and diagnostics center in the heart of Malabon. The following day, February 10, we had two activities, starting with an 8 a.m. seminar sponsored by RC Paranyak Metro and the Young Christian Women's Association, or YWCA, that aims to strengthen the Bawal Bastos law and protect girls and all children from sexual harassment, discrimination, and humiliation. This project has initiated a training program in Barangay Almanzados, Las Piñas, for barangay officials on how to implement the Bawal Bastos law. The objective was to guide them on how they can build safe spaces in their respective communities where girls and children of all ages and genders can feel safe and be amply protected from shaming and harm, be it physical or emotional. Now I was given the privilege of delivering the welcome remarks that day to bring home the message that providing safe spaces are an imperative in our communities. This is actually a project which I wish to replicate in our own adopted community along Kame Street here in Guadalupe Viejo, in partnership with the barangay officials, the Makati PNP, our Rotary Community Corps, and probably the YMCA of Makati. Thank you to my classmate LCP Len Balolong of RC Paranyak Metro for making me a part of this very laudable project. Then, after giving my welcome remarks at the Safe Spaces Act Forum, I motored off to Paranaque that very same day, the 10th of February, to join Secretary Eddie Galvez for the formal turnover of the Emergency Quarantine Facility, or EQF, to the Hospital ng Paranaque. Medical officers of the OSPAR, Hospital ng Paranaque, were on hand to receive the donated facility, which was first built at the height of the pandemic in 2020 during the term of past President Bimbo Mills. This facility was previously, if you would recall, an air-conditioned 15-bed tent equipped with a shower and a toilet. But it was converted by OSPAR into a permanent structure using the materials that were donated by the club, that is beds, air cons. After suffering from wear and tear because of 2 years' use, we decided to repair this facility in keeping with RC Makati's policy of sustainability. The club, working this time with the Benjo builders, replaced the cubicle walling partitions, we installed glass windows, we added overhead ducting enclosures, and constructed 2 new comfort toilets and 1 lavatory. The Hospital ng Paranaque has actually put in a request for more help with the flooring, which also needs repair. And I shall be presenting this from approval by the board as soon as the Hospital ng Paranaque has prepared the posting. Aside from Hospital ng Paranaque, you will recall that we have likewise rehabilitated 3 other EQFs, and these are in the cities of San Juan, Muntinlupa, and the Philippine Army Headquarters in Taguig. Lastly, please remind your respective aunts of our Rotary Aunts Day next Tuesday, February 22. This will be a joint meeting with 2 of our daughter clubs, the RC Makati Premier District, led by LCP Rina Lopez, and RC Makati Business District, headed by LCP Rachel Harrison. Of course, with our aunts in attendance and in control of the program that day, we Rotarians are certainly not allowed to miss it at our own risk. Our guest speaker that day will be the renowned ophthalmologist, Dr. Mingita Padilla, who will lay out for us the state of our ailing public health system. Back to you, Dave.
Thank you, President Louis. President Irene, do you have any updates? President Irene?
Yes. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Irene Holmes, the LCP of Rotary Club of Makati. I'm so happy that I can be part of the program today, and thank you so much, Luis, for giving me this time to talk about today. Okay, I'm looking to join today's programs because I believe the topic is everyone's wants to hear is and learn about. And we all want to know what is 2022 has been strong to us in healthy ways and business-wise. We all want to know what's the expectation in 2022 and how we can navigate it, how we can improve our business effect after the pandemic of 2020 and 2021. In privilege to be part of the joint meeting, I hope all of our members will be able to gain information that is important here in business, and this is for all of us in the business section. We want to know what is back to that we can plan ahead, and planning ahead is always in the integrating part of the business. If we know what's going to be expected, then we will be in a win-win all of our business in 2022. And I hope everyone will be enjoying today's program. And thank you so much for having me here today.
Thank you, President Irene. And finally, from President RJ.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you, classmate Louis, for inviting RC Paranyak Midtown to be part of your joint meeting. And hello, classmate Irene. Glad to be here with you too. I will be sharing some updates from our club. I will just be sharing my screen. Okay. So happy Valentine's to everybody, post-Valentine's. This is our Midtown salute. This is our club hand gesture. So hello. So for our completed projects, we have one now, which is our Zero Waste Initiative, care of our member, Rotarian Gian. So this project, we aim to donate recycle bins to different communities here in Barangay BF and also Barangay Alabang. So the aim of this is to encourage recycling in communities. So what happened was that we from these bins we collect the recycled plastics and give it to our recycling center. So we got to collect in our last collection 100 kilos of plastic from Barangay BF and Barangay Alabang. So part of our thrust to environmentalism is we collaborated with JCI for World Cleanup Day. So we gather different youths from in the community to encourage them to be mindful of the environment. We also launched in partnership with JCI, Gray Matters. This is a mental health awareness discussion targeted towards youths, because during the pandemic, anxiety and depression was quite high. So we helped them overcome those through talks with experts regarding the matter. another collaboration program is with Rotary RC Las Piñas. This is the e-consulta project of Gov Mildred. So this is a Zoom consultation which ended up with a house donation of the medicines that were prescribed to the 30 babies that were consulted in our Zoom session. Another project in collaboration with JCI Alabang, JCI New Jersey, and New York is our Fab 525. This is to encourage physical exercise amid the pandemic, amid work from home. So we wanted a healthier experience, a healthier lifestyle for our youth, even when they are stuck at home during this pandemic. Another one is from our PE Sharon. This seminar was on atopic dermatitis, awareness of and how to cure atopic dermatitis. So this is a collaboration with the doctors from UniHealth Southwoods. Okay, and another one is a blue cap culture. This is awareness for abused little boys. So we push this so that the idea of this is that not only are girls subject to this, but even boys too. So this was in collaboration with different JCI chapters from across the Philippines. Quite recently, also during Christmas, is that we gave our Christmas goodie bags to our adopted community in Country Wakas in Paranaque. And also, just a few weeks, just last month, we donated a dental chair to Haven for Children. Haven for Children is a community of street children located in Alabang. So we donated a dental chair complete with dental tools as a sustainable solution to the oral health problems of the children of the community. So for our ongoing projects, we have an ongoing marker installation. This is care of our past president, Rocky. So this will be located in President's Avenue here in BF Homes. And then we will be donating a hospital bed. I believe once alert level 2 is done, when it goes to alert level 1, we will all be able to deliver this hospital bed to a hospital here in Paranaque. So some upcoming projects, announcements, our Adobo Challenge is still on. So we are aiming to launch this sometime March, depending on the alert level of the Philippines, of NCR. And then another one is our Hanep Buhay project with JC Alabang. So this is we will be teaching the women of Haven for Women here in Alabang bead making, potato and carrot chip making. So this is to help to skills building for them. Todo safe. So we plan to give. I will plan to install alcohol dispensers. It's to the tricycles here in Paranaque. So depending on alert level also, it's quite difficult to move around. And our online concert, this is in partnership with my classmate Reb. So more announcement on regarding this in the weeks to come. So here are newsletters. You can view them in our new website, rotaryparanaque.org. So thank you everybody, and have a good day.
Thank you very much, President RJ. That's an impressive list of projects that you guys have lined up. Well,
thank you so much. Thank you.
Now, I guess we are finally have reached the long-awaited moment of hearing from our guest speaker. In this regard, can I request PP Tito Panlilio to introduce our guest speaker? Tito?
Thank you, Ben. Good afternoon, members and guests of our Rotary Club of Makati meeting for today. Our guest speaker is a personal friend from way back. He's an Ateneo graduate, Jesuit educated, even in University of San Francisco, where he took his collegiate degree and then his MBA in the same university. Bobby, or Robert, or Bobby, as we call him, has been a banker actually for the longest time in his young career. He was connected with Crocker National Bank first, which is a San Francisco-based bank then, and then moved on and spent a lot of years at the Standard Chartered Bank, where perhaps Keith Harrison and Bobby were associates at the same time. If I recall, I saw Standard Chartered Bank there, Keith. But anyway, Bobby's banking career culminated with his being appointment as a young executive vice president of the local security bank, where he was appointed executive vice president in year 2000. Young, I said, because I believe he was just perhaps in his early 40s when he took on this very tough job of being number 2 in one of the bigger commercial banks, universal banks in the Philippines. But what is very balancing in his career and profession is that after his banking career, Bobby jumped over the other side of the fence and became, I suppose, a big banking client, because he decided to put up his own and enter the tough, competitive banana industry and based himself in Davao. In 2014, he put up his own Fruit Tropic Incorporated, a Cavendish banana plantation endeavor. He continues to be a banana planter up to this moment, but in 2017, he was lured back to be a professional manager, professional executive, when he was invited by no less than our past president, Carlos del Rosario, and past president Rene Benitez, to join Amalgamated Investment Bank Corporation as its president. Of course, we all know that PP Carlos and PP Rene Benitez are co-founders of this illustrious investment bank, set up in the 90s, in the mid-90s, and has grown to be the 4th biggest investment bank in the Philippines and the top bond, private and public bond dealer in the country today. So, without further ado, let us welcome and give a big hand to our guest speaker, who will talk about the economy of the country in the year 2022. Before, of course, segueing to 2022, he will give us the status of our economy circa 2021. So, Bobby, please do us the honors. Thank you.
Thank you, Past President Tito. Good afternoon, President Aseoche, President Irene Hong, President RJ Paguyo, Moderator Bing Mototo. Bing, I need a moderator for my Christmas party. Parang galing mo. Yeah. Just so you know. And I'd like to thank, of course, all Makati Rotary members today, members of Rotary Club Circuit Makati and Rotary Club Paranaque Midtown. Thank you all for having me today. I'm honored by your very kind invitation. The next slide, please. One more, please. Well, as you all know, I think the Philippines has several key growth drivers as well as risks that we face day to day, on a day-to-day basis. The key drivers are investments, our OFW remittances, of course, the BPO sector. These things keep our economy going. And of course, we have the vaccine rollout, which may help bring us back to where we were. And I think we see some of that today. The risks, on the other hand, are the COVID-19 variants. Thank God, Omicron has not been too devastating for us. You have debt scarring, the unwinding of accommodative monetary policies. These have been super accommodative, as you know, and they are at the moment, and should remain so until at least after the May elections. Then, of course, we're faced with inflationary pressures. Next. Our third quarter growth, our third quarter GDP growth was one of the highest. If you compare to all these countries, we're well up there with 7.1%. And this even increased further to 7.7% in the fourth quarter. So it's a tremendous achievement. Next. Now, unfortunately, we're probably going to have slower global economic growth in 2022. The global economic GDP is expected to be 4.1% in 2022 versus 2021's global GDP, which was 5.5%. So from 5.5, it's going to go down to 4.1 this year. If you look at the Philippines here on this table, you see it 2019, very good growth of 6.1%, then dramatically dropping to 9.6% when COVID set in. And then in 2021, we recovered a bit to 5.3. And the latest estimate, I think, for the Philippines for 2022 is 5.9, possibly even 6. We'll see where that goes. And next. The country continues to rack up investments. We had US $8.1 billion in the period January to October. Foreign direct investment was 48.1% higher versus the same period in 2020. The amounts raised from the capital markets, part of which I work in that area, since March 2020 until the end of the year was 381.27 billion pesos. There's a lot of liquidity in this market, as you all know. Now, interestingly, 9% of all VC dollars as of the first half of 2021, which is the last figure we could find, 9% of all VC dollars invested in Asia was here in the Philippines. Previously, we only captured 1% of all VC invested in startups in Southeast Asia. So I think that's good news. Then again, next, let's look at what our remittances have done. Our remittances in the January to November 2021 period, in the first 11 months of 2021, grew 5.25%. The growth in cash remittances from the US, Taiwan, and Malaysia contributed largely to the increase in remittances in this January to November period. So that's an area we've always done well in. As you can see, we haven't been hurt too much by that. So that continues to help to be a key driver of our economy. Next. Then, of course, we have the BPO sector. Business process outsourcing receipts are estimated to have grown by about 9% in 2021, higher than the previous projection of only 5% in September. BPO earnings in the first 9 months grew 8.3% on year, already surpassing the central bank's old forecast for the whole of 2021. If the new projections come true, the BPO industry, which of course is a key dollar engine of the Philippines, would reverse the 1% contraction posted in 2020, when pandemic curves were at their tightest. For 2022, the BSP forecasts the BPO receipts to grow 5%, unchanged from the prediction it gave in September. Next. Now, one way, of course, we get things turned around is our vaccinations. And it's reported in our world in data as of January 13 that the Philippines is well on track to get 70% of its population vaccinated in the next couple of months. So that's tremendous. I've heard that Manila alone is about 85%, a lot less in the provinces, but it all comes out to, it will hopefully come out to 70% very shortly. Next. One of our key sectors is, of course, tourism. It's a wonderful sector because most of the money stays in the Philippines. Tourism receipts from April to September 2021 reached 3.1 billion, which is up by 91.6% from the 1.6 billion, only 1.6 billion generated in the same period in 2020. In Boracay alone, I know it's a small area, but tourism arrivals ballooned by 1,151% to 173,104 visitors from the 13,830 tourists recorded in the island during the same period in 2020. For 2022, Secretary Romulo Puyat sees revenge travel manifesting across all markets of the Philippine tourism industry, and in the wake of disconnect and economic hardships brought about by the pandemic, Filipinos are likely to travel much more consciously. Next. We see the balance of trade further widens in November. Imports grew by 36.8% to 10.98 billion US dollars in November. This marked a turnaround from the 13.5% fall in November 2020, but faster than the 25.1% import growth in October 2021. Our exports, merchandise exports grew by 6.6% to US 6.27 billion. This is higher than the 4.6% increase in the same month in 2020 and the 2% growth in October 2021. What's important here is these imports are being used to value add to the exports that we have, so that's good. And then of course, people are buying more now. So consumer confidence, I think, is up. Manufacturing is up. We'll see all that later. So I think this bodes well again for the country. Next, our gross international reserves ended up at US $109 billion. That's lower than the 111 billion, I guess, that was expected. 2022 is expected just to go up a bit to 112 billion. That's about 10.3 months worth of imports, which is a very, very good number. Sorry, I just got a note on something. I think what's also important on this slide is which I'm trying to show is, of course, the peso has deteriorated 5.42%. But the main driver of the drop of the peso was actually the reopening of the economy from our strict lockdowns. This resulted in higher import demand and thus dollar demand. So while it has deteriorated, our economy is actually doing very well. If you look at the Japanese yen, same story there. But the Bank of Japan has been ultra conservative with their short-term rates. For the euro, their lockdown took a toll on them. Also, the higher inflation of the US versus euro means a potential aggressive stance in Fed rates, and the euro gets left behind. Politics is also involved. You have the replacement of Angela Merkel, you have the Ukraine crisis and all that. Anyway, my point here is the 5.42 drop is not that bad. It's been good for our group. On the other side, on the flip side, we've been importing a lot, which is going to help our economy. Next. So, according to the BSP, they did a survey between October 8th, I believe, and November 18 last year. Their business expectation survey shows businesses are more optimistic. The respondents' optimism for the next quarter was attributed primarily to expectations of A, availability of more vaccines and the prospect of achieving herd immunity, B, easing of community quarantines, C, increase in the volume of sales and orders, D, improvement in economic conditions and the prospect of recovery from losses incurred during the stricter community quarantines, and E, the continuous decline in the number of COVID-19 cases. I suspect you all feel something like this, that I guess most of you here are probably much more optimistic today than just a few months ago. Next. This manufacturers survey, the Purchasing Managers Index, we look at that a lot. In ASEAN, the PMI in September was 46.3. The PMI in December turned up to 52.7. Anything over 50 is considered very good. You see in the Philippines, we were already at 50.9 in September, and now it's up further to 51.8%. So I think the feeling in the manufacturing sector is, again, they're starting to grow again. They're starting to import, to manufacture more things, and hopefully sell more things and get their cash flows back on track. Next page, please. Our unemployment rate fell to 6.5% purportedly in November. Now, this was the slowest jobless rate since the agency started releasing the report on a monthly basis in 2021. Including the quarterly releases, it was the lowest since the 5.3% recorded in January 2020 at the start of the pandemic. However, we should point out that the quality of available jobs worsened as the underemployment rate increased to 16.7% in November from 16.1% in October. Our labor force is about purportedly about 48.6 million people, and 64.2% of our 15 plus years in population. So that makes it, we have that's about 75.7 million. Okay, so we move on. Our banks continue to be fairly healthy, even if even if they're having problems with some of their NPLs. They're all very well capitalized. Most of them are very well managed. While NPLs remain fairly high at these commercial banks, lending activity continues to increase. So if you see here on this slide I have for you, in November of 2021, you have total loans in the banking sector of 8.2 trillion pesos. With lending for production loans is of course good. That's very good for our economy. That's well up. If you look in the next page, please. Philippine banks' NPLs seem to settle within 5 to 6%. That may be considered high by Western standards, but again, these banks are fairly big. They're very well capitalized. I think they can easily handle this, and I think you'll see that coming down in the not too distant future. Their non-performing or soured loans are expected to settle, as I said, within 5 to 6% of the total assets by the end of December of last year, and they're projected to remain at single-digit levels in the next few years. Also in November, total assets grew by 7% to 20.4 trillion pesos, buoyed mainly by 9% growth in deposits, which reached 15.8 trillion. As you know, we're very liquid in this country, lots of deposits, they go into the banks, the assets of the banks grow, and the banks increase their profitability. Hopefully they do a little more lending, which we need to do more of, but they are going back to growing again. Next. Sorry, I did that already. Next, please. According to BSP Governor Jokno, the path to post-COVID-19 recovery is the road to sustained recovery requires consistent, purposeful, coordinated efforts. The national government's policy responses remain crucial in sustaining recovery and limiting scarring effects of the pandemic. The monetary policy stance will remain appropriately accommodated until recovery is fully underway. I think you're seeing a lot of this right now. Next. And that is the end of my short presentation. I appreciate your time. And of course, if there are any questions that I can answer, please let me know.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Bob. Well, folks, we've all heard what Bob said. If there are any questions, please either raise your hand or type it on the chat box. Let me throw the first question, if I may, Bob.
Sure.
Of course, we have something happening in May, and I noticed you didn't really talk about that.
I like to not talk about those things.
But the question I'd like to ask is, there have been some commentaries coming from some foreign analysts or economists. I think it was probably Nomura, who had indicated that depending on who wins the presidential election, business could react one way or the other.
Yeah.
I'd like to ask you, as a local businessman on the ground, in touch with local businesses, do you agree that in fact our entrepreneurs are really going to be affected regardless of who the winning candidate will be, or will we be able to adjust?
I think we'll be able to adjust. We've always been able to adjust. I think there's only 2 or 3 candidates that come to mind that could win. I think they'll be pro-business. They see the importance of the business economy, even if the person that wins is perhaps not being openly supported by the business sector. They probably are in some way. I think we'll be fine. You know, we've been at our worst many times before, and we've always recovered. We have good businessmen here, Bing.
Okay, so you're not particularly worried then. I mean, that's the sense you're also getting from your customers.
Oh, yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Another question, related question, this time on the investor side. I mean, we have a lot of very potential private banking clients of Noemi here. In terms of investments that they should be considering, would you be recommending now moving into other currencies other than the peso, going simply beyond the GS instruments that we have here, or what kind of an advice do you think would be appropriate now for our potential private banking clients who are present in this meeting?
Most of the private banking, you know, we're an investment house, but we do private banking. Most of our everything we have is in pesos. So, you know, our incomes in pesos, our growth will all be in pesos. And again, I see none of that moving. It's staying with the banks. So I don't want to say, you know, if I say go to the dollar, then you have an issue. But the dollar really hasn't moved much. Well, it has to 5.2%, of course, and it could be at 52 perhaps at the end of the year. But I don't know what's going to affect that. You know, you have, you know, Bing, if you get, we were lucky with Omicron. What if you get something that's worse? And that can really materially affect us. I mean, that will take a toll on the economy, much more so than an election, in my opinion. If Ukraine goes into a war, that can, you know, that can affect a lot of things. So that's going to affect the currencies.
But right now, you're not seeing it happening yet.
No.
Nothing
No.
moving.
Nothing. I've seen, of course, the deterioration of the peso dollar rate, but that's again largely because we've had the importations. They're back going up, and which again I think is very good for the country.
How about for corporate borrowers? Well, what's the landscape going to be like in terms of interest rates and weakness or softness of the banks in terms of providing more accommodations?
Well, you know, the U.S. rates are definitely going up at least 3 or 4 times in the next year. We've seen some of that. We've seen some already go up in the very short term, maybe even up to 50 basis points already. So you're going to see Philippine interest rates go up as well. But we don't see any of that until, I mean, Noemi's there and she can comment, but I don't see any of that happening, anything big in the Philippines still, certainly after the election. We'll lag behind the US. We always tend to, but this time I think you're going to wait. If the US made a change tomorrow, I don't think we'll see any changes.
Okay. Thanks, Bob. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I want to go add something to what Bob was saying earlier regarding the people exchanging pesos to dollars. Of course, it's encouraged, right? Because the exchange rate is moving up and the U.S. treasuries are moving up.
Yeah.
However, your problem here is, yes, you change it to dollars and you deposit it in banks with what, less than 0.5. Point is, you cannot bring it out. It's kind of difficult. Everybody's having a hard time bringing out their funds out of the country to enjoy a good yield, right? So that's really a balance between putting it here and earning a little bit more than putting it in the other in the dollar. Yeah, but of course it's a safe haven. But that's the problem there. It's kind of hard to open an account outside. Even if you have already an account, you can't add, especially in the US.
Okay.
As you know, Noemi is our executive vice president, head of sales. But if you want better rates, Bing, you just call her. She's still on.
Well, guys, you hear that? Noemi is the person to be in touch with, not Bob, nor Tito.
And
Okay,
she's kinder than me on the rate.
Anytime.
And she's very generous when she remembers your birthdays and wedding anniversaries as well. Never forgets. So anyway, let's now try to hear from our other guests. The first question I see on the box is from Louis, President Louis. How do you factor in your forecast the high GDP debt ratio in the expected decline in government expenditures after the May elections, where a new administration will be coming in?
Well, if I may, one thing good in this present administration is the infrastructure spending has been very high, and I think we've always lagged in that. I think, Bing, you know that. I think it's about 6% of GDP right now. We were always at 2.2, 2.1, even 2% in previous years. You can't really grow our economy or sustain a high rapid growth, in my opinion, without spending 7, 8, 9% of GDP, which is what Thailand does, and Singapore certainly is there, Indonesia, etc. We need to sustain that. I'm hopeful that the next administration maintains that growth. It's good. I mean, it's good if you're trying to attract, a large European company to come to the Philippines, but he's got to pay the highest electricity rates in the region, and he's got to build a road to his plant. It's hard. I don't know if I answered the question. I don't really look at our GDP to debt is not something I look at. It's really but by the way, our debt as a percentage of GDP is small. Huh? I mean, it's maybe 50%. I don't know the exact number. I apologize.
60% now.
Huh?
It's up to 60% now.
But again, the US is 130%. China is 300%. So we have the ability to pay. Initially, for example, one of my frustrations is, personally, as I was saying, why don't we spend more on vaccinations? Because we have the ability to borrow. We have the ability to service our debt. Our economy is actually very good. When you get 60% is a very low figure, actually. Compared to the rest of Asia, they're probably running, even the Thailands and the Indonesians of the world, they're probably 50, 55. But the US is 130. They're still spending more, but they have the ability to pay. As long as you have the ability to pay for the debt, and the debt is going into, in our case, into infrastructure that's going to help the economy, then I think that's okay.
Okay. So bottom line, you don't see the debt levels as something to worry about. As you know, a lot of politicians in the campaign trail have been talking about the heavy debt that this administration is turning over and possible debt repudiation. So that doesn't seem to be in the cards as far as your own call is concerned.
Well, you'll have to ask past President Tito, because he used to run the BOI. So, he watches that stuff. I'm not worried about that number.
All right.
We can handle it. Our reserves are very good on the dollar side. If we were up at 90 or 100, that's different, but we're not. And,
yeah. Okay. And if I may add to Bob's comment, although I'm moderating only just to provide a comment, actually it's a function also of the numerator and the denominator. As our GDP numbers will improve this year, then that means the denominator is going to be larger, which means theoretically then the debt to GDP ratio should be not all that alarming. Anyway, another question, this time it's from Keith Harrison. First question, tourism growth numbers only makes sense when compared to 2019, where they are down. How long do you think it will take to get back to those levels?
My guess is maybe 2 years. I think what we've been seeing is, of course, in the tourism sector, there's a large spend these days from Filipino travelers in the Philippines, whereas before you would have gotten a huge percentage of foreigners. No, now you have no quarantine, so now my kids can come visit me. By the way, which is I'm happy about that. But I think now you'll have a lot more foreigners coming in. Look at all the OFWs. They didn't come in last year. Now, yeah, and many of them are vaccinated or double vaccinated. They can come in. I think now I think you're going to be, in my opinion, you're going to see a big surge this year, just from dropping the quarantine, assuming the vaccinations still roll out, assuming Omicron is not too much of a problem. You know, Bing, it's very interesting because I had a board committee meeting the other day, and there were, I think, 13 of us. And on that committee meeting, 3 of us had COVID. 3 of us had tested positive for COVID. A year ago, you would never have had that. We'd all be in the hospital. You know, now we still talk away. I mean, it's so, I mean, you know, it's that's nice to have that kind of a variant. But again, my worry in the tourism sector and my own business is what happens if another variant comes out that's not as nice as Omicron has been. Now we got a problem. So, you know, I think if everything stays the same, the variant stays the same, the vaccines keep rolling out, I think you'll see the tourism sector go back in a big way this year and next year.
Okay.
Now,
Thank you, Bob.
what about Ukraine? I don't know.
Yeah, that's the second question of Keith.
Might affect the Europeans, but
Okay. So you believe that we would be largely insulated from any conflict in Europe, in Russia, and you don't think we will be affected by economically anyway?
I don't know if you get a world war. You know, I don't know what I don't know if it just stays with Russia and Ukraine. I think we're largely unaffected. Well, my caveat there is oil prices will probably go up. Gas prices in Europe, which is dependent on gas, has gone up 400% last year. You know, you can't. That's we unfortunately, where we're trying to move away from oil, we have it. So that's going to be your big. You'll probably get a big inflation spike, because much of that is oil based.
Okay, thank you, Bob. We have a question here from Tony Lopez. I think you touched on it, but let me ask the question anyway. How will we fare with the planned rise in U.S. interest rates?
Well, we're going to have increased rates. Yeah, and unfortunately, the Philippines tends to follow the U.S. We will get an increase, but I don't see a huge spike. You know, you might get increased rates of maybe 50 basis points. You know, moving slowly up there in the next year, but I don't know for sure. But you will definitely have an increase. But I just don't see it being huge.
Okay.
Again, the government, I think the monetary policy is they'll try and keep rates down.
Okay, Bob, thank you. Any other questions, folks? You can raise your hand.
Big.
Yes.
Okay.
Who's this, please? I can't see the.
Tito.
Hi, Tito. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, Bob, okay, how do you see the borrowing market in the next, well, perhaps after the election? I guess the next 3 months before the election, people are just wait and seeing things, you know, waiting things to happen. But how do you see the borrowing appetite, say, starting August, September this year?
The borrowing appetite. I think what always happens here when we have elections is people hold their money to their chest for a while to see what happens with the, you know, who wins and what their policies are going to be. But again, depending on what kind of business they're in, I think they're going to be borrowing to build up their business again, and get the cash flows back that they used to have. You know, we have many companies We have a couple even in our institution that honestly their business models are fine, they're sound, but their cash flows are affected because they don't have the sales. But once that consumer confidence returns, which then you're going to have a lot more borrowing. So I think I think you're going to get that going back up.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions from the floor? Okay, if there aren't any, can we now turn over the floor to the different presidents for the responses? Let's start with President Louis. Or we have ladies first. Excuse me. Let's have the response from President LCP Irene Holmes. Are you there, Irene?
Yes, I'm here.
Would you like to give a response?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can hear you very clearly.
Hello?
Yes.
Yes, we can. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, that was very, very wonderful speech. I got a lot of update information today. Thank you so much for our guest speaker.
You're welcome.
And I would like to personally give you a little gift. As you know, I'm a Chinese, so I'll be sending you a Chinese tea for the little thank you from our end. Hope you will like it.
I would be very grateful for that. You're very kind. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, President Irene. Does that go for the moderator too? Okay. Can we hear from President Louis? Would you like to now take the floor?
I will come in after classmate RJ.
All right, RJ, please.
Hi, thank you. Thank you to our speaker, Mr. Bob. We learned a lot. Me and my clubmates and some of the people I work with who are also listening in took some notes. Very enlightening lecture and talk.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Thank you.
On behalf of our RC Midtown, Paranaque Midtown, we're thankful for this one, and also thank you, classmate Louis, for giving us the time and platform to appear here.
Actually, I'd like to ask you guys a question. Is there anyone there in the business real estate sector? Because that's the one, that I worry a little bit about that. I don't have too many real estate clients, but I have friends who are working for, let's say, an insurance firm, and now their worldwide mandate, they're allowed to work from home. They just have to come to the office once a week, and that's worldwide. So COVID has changed companies like that. Are we going to get more of that? And is it going to be a large thing that will affect, for example, the business real estate sector?
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know this.
Do we have any members or guests who are from the real estate industry who would like to respond to Bob's query?
Well, I can think of past President Roland Young.
He's not around, is he?
He isn't. I don't see his.
How about June Palafox? June would be a very good proxy for real estate.
Yeah, we're architects, service providers to real estate. At the moment, we're doing 5 hotels, but outside Metro Manila, and also 2 hospitals, and even in Makati, in office building and Pasay Road under construction. And they feel, especially grade A buildings, if we have foreign investors, they prefer that, green buildings and so on. But there's now move at the edges of Metro Manila and many of these incoming townships. I'm working on a very large scale airport-driven city somewhere in Bulacan. And it's not of interest. And many now are going to mixed-use development, where you have a place to live, work, shop, and dine, learn, worship, 15-minute township, 15-minute neighborhood. Now it's a time to really rethink the mistakes, obsolete practices we're doing in urban development. Thank you.
So the real estate sector, June, what you're saying is that continues to be quite steady, and in fact, looks like it might even be increasing in terms of activities. That's
In
what
fact,
you're saying.
next year, we have more projects in the Philippines now than before pandemic. Because before, we did a lot of work abroad. Now we're more focused on the Philippines because of travel restrictions. We're more busy now than before pandemic in projects in the Philippines.
Really?
Okay.
Wonderful. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Thank you, June.
We are in a hire mode, in fact. We're hiring people, not firing people. We're hiring.
President Louis.
All right, thank you again, Bing, and thank you once again to my classmates Irene and RJ for co-hosting this meeting with me, and also a very interesting talk, Bob. We actually began this year with a brief scare due to Omicron, but we did not resort to hard lockdowns, and we kept our businesses open. And that is because this variant of Omicron is, though highly infectious, not very virulent as the Delta. And hopefully, as Bob says, the variants will stay that way. And which is why, contrary to expectations, our GDP grew. Even our speaker says that our third quarter GDP was among the fastest in the region. And because of this, some economic pundits, the NEDA included, are now revising their GDP growth forecast for 2022 from 5.1 to 7.1%, anchored on the expected further decline in COVID-19 cases, which would result in increased economic activity. And then, of course, you factor in the increased spending because of the May 2022 president elections, and you would understand there may be some basis for the optimal forecast, but there remain some headwinds. Well, after the elections, still the reality of the debt to GDP ratio would be steering the next administration at its pace, although Bob says we can handle it with our reserves. And as being pointed out, if the denominator grows, which is the GDP, then we can have a more manageable ratio. So let's see what the next president would do with such a substantial debt pile dumped on his or her lap. Sir, another basis for a conservative estimation, a more conservative estimation is the expected slowdown in government expenditures in the quarters coming after the May elections. As the previous election years have shown, although we hope it would not, and Bob says it wouldn't, so long as we keep on investing and spending on infrastructure. And then the Philippines as an archipelagic nation is always vulnerable to adverse weather conditions, which always contribute to a spike in food inflation. And apart from these domestic factors, we are always faced with this foreign externalities, such as the looming crisis in Ukraine and its impact on oil prices and on the supply chain. Probably there might be some disruption. And the high inflation rate in the US may continue or would likely put pressure on the Philippine peso and on the interest rates. So these factors, both domestic and foreign, can provide fodder to a more conservative forecast of GDP growth, probably being less than what is hoped or expected to be. But our speaker, Bob, maintains a measure of confidence, and that our economy will continue to be resilient and would tread a trajectory path that leads towards a recovery. And this will partly hinge on the capacity of the government to get more people vaccinated. And this is a recurring theme among the economic pundits and analysts, that for the Philippine economy to get a boost, it will depend on the number of Filipinos getting shots in their arms. So, Robert, Bob, those wishing to get good and sound advice from you as to where to put their money in, as our economy is expected to heat up, they can give you and your team at AIB a call. Wouldn't that be correct? So we have actually Mr. Lehmann's number and email, and the AIB team, for those interested, just get in touch with our secretariat. For giving us your time, Robert, please accept our tokens of appreciation. First of all, we are giving you this 55th coffee table book, recently published and featuring the milestones of the RC Makati for the last 55 years. And you can definitely enjoy reading this book while sipping from this bottle of wine. And also, we are giving you this plaque of appreciation, which has an embossed replica. It says here, an embossed replica of the steel plate on the reef bud that will be planted in the seabed of Narvacan, Ilocos Sur, as part of our Save Our Reefs project. This is a major environmental initiative of the Rotary Club of Makati, in line with Rotary 7th area focus, which is saving the environment. Before we adjourn, ladies and gentlemen, let's have our customary photo session with our guest speaker. Open your video settings and smile. Say, amalgamated.
Amalgamated. Thanks, Bobby.
You're very welcome, sir.
Who's doing the taking?
I hope we didn't make you work for your lunch, although we didn't serve you lunch, Bobby.
Okay, slide 1. Slide 2. Okay, thank you.
So we'll be sending our tokens over, Bob. So can I call on now my classmates to adjourn this meeting? Where's my bell? In behalf of the Rotary Club of Makati, I adjourn this meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
What about the other
Nice
classmates?
meeting you all.
Are you still there? You have to adjourn the meeting. And RJ,
On
And
behalf of Secretary Makati, I enjoyed the meeting. Thank you very much.
in behalf of the Rotary Club of Paranaque Midtown, I adjourn the meeting.
thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.